Welcome, seekers of wisdom. Hey, thank you for joining me today. I know that there's been a couple of channel changes. I just wanted to cover those quickly. We had some great feedback, and we changed the name of the channel, to the approach a little bit. But overall, what we're going to do is what we've been doing. We're going to dig into some of the more challenging areas of what you need to know to, help figure out what's going on in the world, what's going on in the U.S. today, where it matters, we can help resist and bring change. Also, for the future, even if we get past the madness that's going on today, we all need to be informed to make sure that this stuff doesn't continue or happen again. Today, we're going to talk about what is happening in the world of public finance, because, oh boy, is there a lot that's going on. And I think we all need to be informed about what watchdogs are in place, what security is in place, who does what. So where we're going to start today is we're going to start with that famous phrase that everybody loves called follow the money. Now, these three simple words, they were popularized during the Watergate investigation in the 70s. That investigation and the craziness around that led to the exposure of one of America's largest political scandals. Two determined journalists following the trail of campaign finances and secret funds uncovered a web of corruption that went to the White House. And as we all know, the ramifications of at least some of that. But Follow the Money isn't just about exposing scandals, it's about understanding the very foundations of our society. Today, we're going to explore something that affects every single one of us, and that's public funding. Now, don't let the words around public financial institutions and funding be intimidating. We're simply talking about how our communities manage their money. Picture, if you will, your local government as a vast network of flowing streams. Each stream represents money moving through the community. It pays for schools, maintains roads, keeps emergency services running. Now, when these streams flow clearly and openly, our communities thrive. But what happens when these streams become murky or when unknown tributaries start feeding into them? Let me share some real examples from history. In 2008, Iceland, a country once praised for its innovative banking system, faced a devastating crisis. Their financial streams, so to speak, had been opened to too many channels too quickly. And the result? Three major banks in Iceland collapsed. Their currency plummeted, and the entire nation economy went under. Now, there were a lot of ramifications from that because in Iceland, they actually held those responsible accountable, which is a topic for a different video. Or, if you will, consider Greece in 2009. Imagine discovering that the streams of public money had been deliberately hidden underground through very complex financial arrangements. Previous governments had concealed massive public debt. They triggered a crisis that rippled throughout the entire European Union. That one country's murky financial waters contaminated an entire continent's worth of economic health. But even here in America, we've seen what happens when these financial streams aren't properly monitored. In 2010, the city of Bell, California discovered that public officials had been secretly diverting massive amounts of money into their own pockets through inflated salaries and benefits. The citizens, many living on modest incomes, were unknowingly feeding this abuse through their taxes and fees. But there are beacons of hope. If you look at Norway's government pension fund, often called the oil fund, they've created a system as clear as a mountain spring water. Every investment is publicly reported. Independent auditors regularly inspect the flows. The Ministry of Finance maintains clear responsibility for every drop, and strict ethical guidelines ensure that money flows toward the public good. These examples teach us that public financial systems aren't just about numbers on a screen. They're about trust. They're about the future we're building together. When we allow these systems to become clouded or corrupted, we lose much more than money. We lose the foundation of public confidence that keeps our communities strong. Now, let's talk about how these financial streams flow in the United States. At the local level, every community has its own unique system. But there are common sources you can explore. Start with your city or county's Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or CAFR. This document, which is required by law, shows exactly how your local government raises and spends money. You can usually find it in your local government's website or through your city or county clerk. Now, at the federal level, the streams become wider and they're much more complex, but they're still traceable. At least they currently are. The Federal Reserve, also known as the Fed, acts as the nation's central bank, controlling the flow of money throughout the economy. The Treasury Department, which we're also hearing a lot about, manages government spending and debt, while the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, oversees financial markets and protects investors. But here's what's crucial to understand. These systems are protected by watchdogs. The Government Accountability Office, the GAO, serves as Congress's investigative arm. They audit federal programs and track government spending. The Office of the Inspector General and each federal agency monitors for waste, fraud, and abuse. The CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, provides nonpartisan analysis of budgetary and economic issues. Now, these watchdogs don't just bark, they can also bite. In 2001, they exposed the Enron scandal, revealing one of the largest accounting frauds in history. In 2008, they flagged the risks of the mortgage market, though sadly, their warnings weren't heeded in time. But what happens when these watchdogs are weakened? History shows us these dangers. When the Glass-Steagall Act was repealed in 1999, it removed the separation between commercial and investment banking, a safeguard that had protected our financial system since the Great Depression. Less than a decade later, this contributed to the 2008 financial crisis. Let me share some more recent examples. In 2018, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency weakened the Volcker Rule, which had prevented banks from making certain risky investments with their customers' deposits. By 2023, this contributed to the collapse of the Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank, the second and third largest bank failures in U.S. history. Consider the Securities and Exchange Commission. In 2006, the SEC's funding was effectively frozen while the markets overseas grew exponentially. With the reduction in staff and resources, the SEC struggled to detect and prevent financial fraud. And the Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme, the largest in history, continued for years despite repeated warnings to SEC investigators. The Federal Reserve's independence as a watchdog is crucial. When political pressure led to premature loosening of banking regulations in the 80s, it contributed to the savings and loan crisis, costing taxpayers billions. Us, billions. The same pattern emerged in the lead up to the 2008 crisis, when pressure to maintain low interest rates and reduced oversight of mortgage-backed securities helped create a devastating housing bubble. But perhaps most concerning is when watchdogs lose their independence and become political tools, which is what we're seeing today. This has happened under both Democratic and Republican administrations, with serious consequences each time. Consider the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. During the Reagan administration's Republican leadership in the 80s, it aligned with a deregulatory agenda, relaxing oversight of risky lending practices. The result? By 89, the saving and loan crisis had cost taxpayers $124 billion. The Federal Reserve's independence has faced pressure from both parties. Under Democratic President Johnson in the 60s, Fed Chairman William Martin faced intense pressure to keep interest rates low despite inflation risks. Later, under Republican President Nixon, Arthur Burns yielded to similar pressures, contributing to the devastating inflation of the 70s. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau shows how dramatic these shifts can be. Created under Democratic President Obama's administration in 2011, it aggressively pursued consumer protection cases. When leadership changed under Republican President Trump, his administration in 2017, the enforcement actions dropped by 80%, and consumer protection rules were rolled back. When control shifted back to Democratic President Biden, enforcement actions increased again, highlighting how the agency's effectiveness swings with political changes. Or look at the Security and Exchange Commission, the SEC. Under both Republican and Democratic administrations, we've seen periods where political pressure affected enforcement. During the early 2000s, under Republican President Bush, enforcement of trading violations decreased. Similarly, under President Clinton in the 90s, the pressure to regulate led to the repeal of the Glass-Steagall, which many economists contribute to the 2008 financial crisis. The pattern is clear. When oversight agencies align with any political party's agenda rather than maintaining independence, our financial system becomes vulnerable. It doesn't matter which party is in power. What matters is maintaining truly independent oversight based on evidence and data, not political goals. An independent oversight isn't just a nice idea, it's essential for our financial stability. When agencies follow political agendas rather than evidence, investigations get slow walked or buried, enforcement actions become selective, warning signs are ignored, data becomes manipulated to fit the narrative, whistleblowers face increased retaliation, and public transparency decreases. Think of it this way. When a referee starts playing for one team, it's no longer a fair game. The same is true for our financial watchdogs. So what's the solution? What can we do when the watchdogs are muzzled or distracted? It's a really important question today. First, we have to understand oversight isn't just about agencies. It's about engaged citizens, independent journalists, and whistleblowers. The revelation of the Madoff scheme came not from regulators, but from independent financial analyst Harry Markopolos. The 2008 financial crisis might have been even worse without whistleblowers like Richard Bowen at Citigroup and Elaine Fleischman at JP Morgan Chase. Now, if you want to get involved, start local. Attend your city council meetings, especially during budget sessions. Follow the money through tools like usaspending.gov, which tracks federal spending. If it still exists after the couple of weeks of craziness we've been through. Read reports from organizations like the Project on Government Oversight or the Sunlight Foundation. Join or support citizen oversight committees in your community. Remember, in a democracy, every citizen is a potential watchdog. The more eyes on the stream, the clearer it flows. Now, until next time, this is the Analog Oracle, reminding you that wisdom isn't just about knowing, it's about understanding. Take care and keep those financial waters crystal clear. Love you all.